for us and the people around us, they're going to need to borrow some of your strengths. So again, it goes back to what are you doing to lead yourself well? And in a world now where, what's the latest statistic? 30% of people are struggling with depression and mental health and anxiety and stress. I mean, it's real. And so if we don't do anything and to address some of that stuff, the default is going to be an unhealthy leader. But if we really do design, instead of live by default, we live by design, and we design our lives to be stable and strong and growing and vibrant, I think the people around us are going to benefit from
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome. We got, I tell people all the time I should just record the beginning of the podcast. We call it Behind the Vault, but I was getting to know my man Randy here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Austin. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it, and excited about all you're doing to help leaders. It's cool. Business people. Love it.
I love it. So kind of give people what I like to do, a little bit of background, and then we'll kind of see where we go from there.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I've been trying to help equip and encourage leaders for a long time. You probably can hear from the Southern accent. I live down near Atlanta. But we get to work with a lot of companies and organizations and teams, trying to help them chase high performance. And we do a lot of speaking and training and coaching. We got about 25 people helping us, and we're having a lot of fun. So, we're kind of like you. We're trying to help leaders get better. I believe that if the times I've had, I'll say it this way, the times I've had a good leader, it's been really good for me. If I've had a bad leader, it's not so good for me. So we're trying to help everybody that we can have a good leader. We dream about a world well led. It'd be really cool, but I'm not sure. I'll just say this. I think we got a long way to go. So
yes,
job security for us, trying to help people build leadership cultures in their companies and organizations. It's a lot of fun.
So there is a new podcast that's out with Alex Smith, Shane Battier, and the guy that did Instacart IPO. It's my favorite new podcast called The Glue Guys. They're like 7 episodes in. It's just insane stuff. And he's done a lot of talks for Google, right? And he had a stat that just blew my mind out of the back of my body, and you're going to love it because what you do. So they had tracked all the search results since Google could track it, right? Leadership has been Googled in the 90 to 95 percentile the entire existence of Google. And teammate has been Google. The search is 1%.
How about that?
And so you had this topic, right? I've read every John Maxwell book. I'm actually speaking at a John Maxwell event on Thursday here in town. And I've read them all. And I spent 6 months before I bought the company knowing that leadership would be kind of the crutch of what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's such a loaded word, right? It's such a, how do you define it in the simplest terms? Because I think people have it's really perspective. It can be a million different things.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of ways to think about it. John Maxwell, you mentioned him. He says leadership is influence. I think he said nothing more, nothing less. That's a good way to say it. I think leaders help people get from here to there. But I'll give you a picture we use for leadership when we think about it. I think there's 2 sides to it. We use the picture of the iceberg to think about it. And if you think about an iceberg, there are definitely 2 sides to it. There's the underneath the water side, which is much bigger. If you go back to, I guess it was 5th grade science where we learned about icebergs, is what they tell me. I wasn't paying much attention, but they say that the teacher told us back then that about 90% of it is below the waterline, 10% above. And I think that's a really good way to think about our leadership if we're going to use a picture for it. 90% is the character of the leader. Are they teachable? Are they humble? Are they positive? Do they think others first? Are they, we say servant leadership. Those things are important. But there is a skill side to our leadership. Can we lead meetings and build teams and solve problems and cast vision? All those things are really important skills to have. We think if your heart's not right, nobody really cares about your skills. So that there is an over index. I don't know that it's 90%, but if you think of the best leader you've ever known, Austin, chances are it would be something about their character that marked you way more than their ability to lead meetings and build teams and solve problems. So I like that picture. I think about that when we train in organizations, we start with the character side of leadership. We've got some heart habits that we encourage them to put in place, but it really starts with that heart for me. If the leader is got their heart right, and you couple that with high performance skills, they really can change the world. But if not, they end up being one of those bad leaders like I described. And we all know the torture of going to work every day and your leader is self-serving and negative and all that stuff. It just becomes brutal to slog through that. So I think leaders really help people get from where they are to where they need to be, but they do it with the right heart and in the right way. And if they get that right, we all know leaders, we run through a wall for them. If they've got both the skills and the character side. So that's the way I would describe it. I don't, I know there's lots of ways to think about it. I Googled it. Actually, it's funny you said that. I Googled leadership a while back, and a buddy of mine, when they were thinking about it for their company years ago, they found out there were 6,000 published definitions of leadership. I Googled it a few weeks back, and it had over 1 billion hits. So everybody's got an opinion on it. I think everybody needs to define it for their organization. We do believe you have to define it, but once you get it defined, you build toward that, you train toward that, you coach toward it, you hold accountable to that, all that stuff. And if you get that in place, if you're well led, your organization can really, your company, whoever's listening, it really can become something great. But if you wing it and hope it gets better, we always say hope is not a strategy. You fly by the seat of your pants, not very likely you're going to get where you want to go.
And I think that what the thing that I'm obsessed with right now is I think we over-index on business advice and we don't index on fixing ourselves, right? And I think the more personal work you do and the more demons you unearth and the more emotional, like I realized something like the other day. It's not like my company needs me to answer every question. They like that me and the CEO are there because emotionally we provide stability. It doesn't mean we're saying anything, but seeing us provides like a steady calmness that they can operate. And there's a ton of personal work that's been gone into like me being a better leader. And I think that we're over indexing on learning everything about marketing and everything about this. And like at the end of the day, if I had to put my finger on it, it's spend all your time, like every single bit of it, like critiquing your own leadership and asking for feedback. And I think that I'm not saying the business part of it's going to just figure itself out. You can't be in a bad business. But I think that we've over-indexed on the let me just learn everything about business and forget about these other aspects, because it's really, at the end of the day, just people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do believe that the hardest person that you will lead is you. I do. I think every person, that self-leadership piece is so important. That's why I love the name of your show, The Construct Your Life. I think it's leaders at last. How would I say this? Leaders at last aren't built fast, but they are built. They work on their own self. They work on their own heart. And you're talking about the stability in your organization. When leaders are right and they're working on themselves, they're leading themselves well. I'll give you another picture. It's almost like if you go to a lake and you've probably been on a boat in a lake and you've seen these buoys where sometimes they mark a no wake zone or whatever, but that's not really the reality. I mean, there's going to always be waves crashing around your life. And if you don't have the soul practices in place or the character development in place to handle the storms that come, your life is going to sink. But if you have a buoyant leadership, a self-leadership practice, and those habits are in place, they're right, I think no matter how hard things get and no matter how many waves crash, and you got Bob on your team and he's lost his mind this week, or Jenny's over here doing something, whatever, all this stuff is going to come at you. It's reality. But if you've got the self-leadership practices in place, it does stay afloat. And I think the employees in our companies, if we're stable and we are thinking correctly about our own leadership, they literally can tether to that, and it just provides tremendous stability to everyone around. So I like the way you said that. I think that's a really great reminder that we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves first. That we talk about leadership in companies all the time, but we always remind leaders, self-leadership, the person you see when you look yourself in the mirror is I mean, that's the hardest person you're ever going to lead, right?
Well, it's the weirdest thing in the world. So you become owner of a business. You're in charge of 52 families as of yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I'm only being paid for my decision making, right? And so and I realized, okay, wait, we just flipped the entire paradigm. My health, my stability is number one, because if I'm not in a good place, then I can't make a good decision. So it's right. Like, it just became like, oh, you got to like push and drive. And it's like, no, you got to rest, recharge, eat well, take care of yourself. Like that's become like it's hit the top of the pyramid now.
Yeah, well, we say all the time, people always watch the leader, and I think we have to model what we would want others to follow. Because if you want other people to value some of those things that you described there, you got to model that for others. I think the leader's voice really is the loudest voice in an organization, but I think the leader's example is louder than his or her voice. It's what we do, it's what we model for others that really is going to determine whether they're going to reach their full potential as well. And we've got to be strong enough for us and the people around us. They're going to need to borrow some of your strength. So again, it goes back to, what are you doing to lead yourself well? And in a world now where, what's the latest statistic? 30% of people are struggling with depression and mental health and anxiety and stress. I mean, it's real. And so if we don't do anything and to address some of that stuff, the default is going to be an unhealthy leader. But if we really do design, instead of live by default, we live by design, and we design our lives to be stable and strong and growing and vibrant, I think the people around us are going to benefit from that. So yeah, I'm all in on what you're saying, man. I think it's great.
And so one of the things I came up with that's very interesting in my profession is, or the company we own, is like I have guys from 17 to 70 years old. Right. And so what I call is you have to understand, you have to do leadership through the generations.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I have a rule. If you're above 50, they need no rah-rah. Okay. They don't need me to motivate them. They don't care about like those things. They just go to work. They do their job because that's what they said. 20-year-olds are different. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for, and the 30-year-olds are looking for that next step in their career. And so understanding where everybody's motivation is so important, and not what I really hate, wasting words. And so that was a big deal for me, is understanding the behind the game, like where they grew up, what was their motivation. It's like, how do you understand the man? You understand the father. How do you understand the father? You understand the grandfather, so on and so on.
That's good. We had an opportunity. We do a lot of work with Chick-fil-A. Some of your audience will be familiar with the restaurant brand Chick-fil-A. Done probably, I don't know, over 200 events for them through the years. And we do a lot of leadership training and development with them. And one of the things that had risen on their struggle, list, I mean, the number one thing that they were challenged with was people. And if you think about a Chick-fil-A, there's, I guess, a couple thousand restaurants around North America with about 400,000 employees that are coming and going at all times. They have about 100% turnover with their young people. And so you think about, you're trying to find, you got 52 people, we got 25. I mean, you're trying to find people all the time that are the right people. Imagine having 400,000 and about 300,000 of them are turning over every year. That's a lot. But you go there and it's always the same. Is how do they do this? Well, one of the things we did is they said, how do we attract not just typical talent, but how do we attract top talent? Like how do we find exceptional people, not just acceptable? So we did a bunch of research and came up with this content called Talent Magnet. And in that, Austin, we interviewed 7,000 people, which was pretty cool, pretty extensive study that we did. And we found out that there are, and your ages is what made me think about this, from 15 to 65, actually top talented people had three things in common. And there was a commonality across it. This was not there's some things like you described this generation wants this generation wants this generation that, and that's true. But when it comes to what you're trying to build in your organization, I'll share real quick with your audience. There's three things they're looking for. The first thing they told us is we want what we called we alliterated it for a book. We want a better boss. We want an engaged leader. They told us all over and over again. We want to work for someone who sees us as a person, not just as an employee, and they want to have an engaged leader to work for. And I think if your audience is going to do anything in their companies to build a great place that is going to attract people to want to work there, make sure everybody's well led at every level. That was number one. The second thing they said was, we want a brighter future. And you talked about your 35-year-olds, actually the 15 to 65-year-olds, all of them, they think about it differently like you described, but they all want a place where they're going to be able to grow. Typical talent really is thinking about Friday. Top talent is thinking much more futuristic, their promotion, maybe even the next company they're going to own or work for or whatever. And sometimes we're like, well, I don't want to invest in them and then they leave me. The reality is, if you invest in them, they actually stay longer, but they want a path to grow. They want to get better. And so I would encourage everybody listening, make sure everybody on your payroll is getting better. There's a path to growth. Growing people grow stuff. So you want to create that growth mindset. And then the third thing they said, all 7,000 of them, we want to be a part of a bigger vision. We want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. We don't want to just make a living. We want to make a difference. Top talented people think that way. Now, they do want to make a living. Interestingly, a lot of people think if you just pay them more, they'll come and they'll stay. Actually, you have to pay a fair wage if you have top talent or typical talent. It doesn't matter. You got to pay a fair wage. That was not, though, what top talented people said. They said, well, actually, they'll work for less sometimes to be a part of something great. And so if anybody's listening here that you're building a company, make sure it's well led at every level. Make sure people are having a path to grow, and make sure that you're doing something great. And if you'll do those three things, put them in place, don't be surprised if you start attracting better people. So I'm with what you're saying there. I just give a little more color to it with the work we did with Chick-fil-A.
No, you're 100%. My buddy been in Chick-fil-A for a really long time. Just spent the week with him at the conference. So 100%. I mean, he out of Delaware. And this is not by design. So I'm a small business that's trying to grow. It's not like I'm trying to make people take less. But the last 6 people that we hired took less to come work for us because they're more excited about.
They want to be a part of something great. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my favorite, I think might be a John Maxwell quote, like, create your vision big enough for others to fit inside of it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
You know, and so at the end of the day, you know, people are asking, they're saying, okay, so they're talking about all this stuff. They're talking about leadership. They're talking about all these different things. Is there just because I'm a little bit of a different cat, I would say a lot of people read the books, but maybe it doesn't resonate. So would your suggestion to be them, how would you suggest they go about, you know, learning leadership? Because I think it's a learned skill through action, and I think books are great, but how would you suggest somebody goes about?
Yeah, well, that's I don't want to sound like a commercial here, but one of the things that we've done is let me back up a little bit. So years ago, I spent a few years as a school teacher, and I wasn't qualified to be a school teacher. It was kind of a weird story. I shared at a different time, but I had a desperate principal who needed a teacher last day before the Christmas break, and her teacher quits that morning. And so anyway, I ended up with a job in January, 2 weeks later. And I was teaching biology, which is laughable because, you know, I wasn't qualified again. But I was able to read and stay a day ahead of the ninth graders all through the spring, which worked. They didn't want to be in there any more than I did, you know, but we made it. We survived. And then I got hired back for the following fall. And I learned that summer, you got to have lesson plans. You can't just come in here and, you know, we got to have a plan going into this next year. So that whole term scope and sequence, I'd heard it before, but I didn't really understand. You got to have a process for how you develop a student. And I don't know if you're ever around any little kids, but when school starts every year, the first graders don't get trigonometry books on day one. They get some numbers. They learn to count first, and then you can add them up and subtract them, and times tables probably third grade. And you get to a little fractions and algebra and geometry, and eventually I never made it to trigonometry, but people can make it. They just don't start there. And I think so many times, Austin, we have leaders that we have more to do than we can do. And our promotion is basically, hey, if you need anything, let me know. They're all excited about a new position. We're excited. We don't have to do it. And that's our whole training. Like, hey, Austin, can you handle this? And you're like, yeah, I'm good. And you're getting an extra $1 an hour and you're fired up. And I'm glad because I got 2 jobs anyway, and I'm trying to do this one. And I tell you, if you need anything, let me know. And I don't teach you how to lead meetings. I don't teach you how to build a team. I don't teach you how to solve the problems that you're going to face every day. There's no role clarity at all, but in most companies, we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And so we just like, that is not going to work. We've got to have a scope and sequence for how you train a leader. And so when we started working on all our content for Chick-fil-A, we actually, Mark Miller, my partner, he was writing books. He was working there at the time he was over their leadership development, but he was writing all these books. And then I started creating content that basically would help other companies be able to run the same play. And we created basically resources that would go along with the books. I mean, the books are great, but I think you practice your way to radical results. You don't, again, hope is not a strategy, and maybe something will change that. Maybe it won't. You got to practice if you want to be great, if you want to be elite. And so we are very tactical and practical about things that people need to do to build a leadership culture, things they need to do to construct their life, all that. We're just heavy practitioners. And it's amazing. If you start where you are, you do have to start where you are, but you don't have to stay there. If you start where you are and you begin to take baby steps and practice every day, it is amazing how much your situation can change over time. So we've created all these resources to help people do that. And then we train and teach. That's why I said I don't want to do a commercial here, but we do workshops in companies to help them basically chase high performance. And it's a lot of fun when you see people start making progress. Because think about yourself. You don't go to, in your case, HVAC school and learn how to lead meetings and build teams and solve problems. You learn how to do the trade, the technical thing. You're great at that. But then all of a sudden you find yourself with 52 people. And what do we do with all this stuff?
Yeah.
We've worked with people that, everything from farm companies to exterminators and everything in between, professional sports teams. Shout out to your Pirates up there. I worked with them for a few years with their coaches. But the principles are transferable from company to company, organization, team, whatever you got going on, churches, schools, all kind of stuff. But every single one of them has one thing in common. They all need to be well led. And so there's got to be a process. I know it's a long answer, but there's got to be a process to how you develop a scope and sequence, if you will, to how you develop a leader.
And just to be clear, I don't know anything about HVAC, and I never seen a furnace till I moved to Pennsylvania. Just so we're clear. So,
there you go.
I'm more on the people scale,
which is probably more of an advantage that you have more of a leader to start with. But you'd be surprised at how many companies are out there and they've never really thought about the leadership side of things, and then they create all this work and they're just going, oh my gosh, what do we do? So
because I believe that the only way to truly do something, right? People think it's wild. So when I commit to something, right, whatever it be, we're going to do it. And so what I mean by that is, like, we started having a leadership team within the company, and they meet once a week. And, some weeks it's super productive. Some weeks it's not super, but like, it's just done every week. Like that, you're getting in the rhythm of like, this is the thing. And they're taking ownership in the thing. And right. I stand behind this 100%. And people think there is no other personal development. There's no, and I'm making a joke on purpose. There's no drug. There's no therapy. There's no any of those things that can make you learn more about yourself than leading people. Because, a lot of my guys didn't go to college, but they can smell bullshit coming from 3 states away.
Yeah.
And if you're fake, if you're not real, if you try to pull wool over their eyes, it's not going to work. And so just this morning, I handled something not great. And sure enough, my CEO texted me 3 hours later and he's like, hey, but like, I also got thrown into something that honestly I shouldn't have any say in, because I have no idea what they're talking about because I'm not involved in that aspect of the business. So what I should have done is just walked away and not got involved at all. And so, okay, learn, move on, fix it. Like, that's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I think we constantly learn as we go, but we always say the best way to learn to be a leader is to lead something. That's exactly what you're saying. There's just nothing like getting in the deep end of the pool and you either swim or not. But you don't want to be there without some leader that is investing in you and equipping you and making sure that you have the tools that you need. And yeah, that's what we do. We spend all our time trying to help companies build leadership cultures. I mean, it's just nothing but you talk about a competitive advantage. If you're well led at every level, it's like, it's incredible from a profit standpoint. Engagement goes up, execution off the charts. We define execution a little differently. Most people are like, when you execute, we're just run the play. No, we say it's everybody does the right thing the right way every time. It's like, it's got to be, and for a Chick-fil-A, think about them again. I'll use them as an example again. The food's got to be hot. The place has got to be clean. The customer service is important to them. I mean, all that stuff has got to be right, or you're going to have a bad experience. And then if you go there and have a bad experience, you're going to go tell your buddies you don't want to go there. But if they get it right, I mean, it's incredible the following they have, because they're executing at a high level. But all that stuff is built on a foundation of leadership.
And an analogy in my business to give you some on your same thing. When you're getting great service like that at a Chick-fil-A, like 90% of what happens to you don't see, right? Well, here's the problem. We're installing HVAC unit, and 90% of what we're doing is very expensive, and you don't see it. But guess what? You feel it. And so you're selling. I said, what are we selling, guys? Well, we're selling HVAC, and no, you're not. You're selling trust.
Yeah.
You're selling trust. When the weather drops, you can push the button, and it works. That's it. That's all you're selling.
Yeah, and think about this too. I mean, I just bought a new unit. We've been here in our home 23 years now. We had to replace a unit this year, and I'll say something here that will resonate with some of your listeners. If you're in any kind of customer facing deal, you're right about all that. The heat better come on when I turn it on, and the air's got to be cold in the summer. But I also will say this. When you invite an HVAC person into your home, you're inviting them really into your most sacred space. I mean, it's not like I'm coming to your store and saying, hey, I want to buy this unit. I'm actually inviting you to come into my home, sell it to me. And so the way you treat my home, the way you treat me when you come into my home, all that stuff, that is a part of your brand as well. In an HVAC world, we do a lot of work with plumbers and electricians as well. We have done some of
all that too.
Just to remind them, the exterminators we work with, the way you treat people when you go into their home, this is their space. And so you have a chance to make an impact for your brand and your company every time you do that. The way you treat people, the way you talk to people, all that. I think that's one of the things about Chick-fil-A that's so amazing. You hear my pleasure all over the place when you go there. Is it really their pleasure? And they challenge their people to make sure you treat people with honor, dignity, and respect. But yeah, we got to have good chicken. That's why they're coming, is to eat food. But the way we treat people, and I'm telling you, if you go to some of these other restaurants and you're just like, they're not even thinking about this stuff. They have food, but it's like, sometimes it doesn't taste that great and you don't get treated that great. Where are you going to go? I mean, so it's the same thing is true with your HVAC company. It's you can go in and treat somebody like a jerk. It can be the heat works, but if my buddy calls me like, you don't want to deal with them, that guy was a jerk, versus if you get it right and you treat people the right way. I tell the plumbers sometimes, I'm doing an event for some plumbers in a couple of weeks. And I had a few weeks ago I did. And I told them, I said, I don't know that anybody's doing anything on the planet more important than plumbers. I mean, like, imagine a world without water. Yep. You could for about 3 days and then we'd all be dead. I mean, we got to have clean water, but it's like, nobody wants to call a plumber. Nobody, I mean, no offense to Austin, but nobody's picking up and going,
Plumbing's so easy because there's no like, hey, we could do some AC. We could, like, plumbing's like, we need you.
Dude, and the same thing's true, Austin, for HVAC. I mean, nobody's waking up today going, hey, I hope I get to call Austin today and replace my unit. That's not happening. But we know when it does happen, what happens. People say, they call their buddy and like, who do you use for your HVAC? And you go, oh, you got to call Austin. You're going to, it'll cost what it costs, but you're going to get treated this way. And that's just a cherry on top for your business that way. So anybody listening, whether you're a school teacher or it doesn't matter what you do, if you treat people the right way and you get the customer side of it right, your product is good, you're going to have a business that is off the charts versus one that's like you got great products, but you got terrible customer service, or you got good customer service, but your products don't work. You got to blend all that. So I don't want to forget to mention the way we treat people matters here. There's an old, I don't know if you read the Bible or not. When I was a kid, I remember the old Bible verse, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And I think if we just all did that, it would, in our business, it would just make our businesses better. So anyway, I'm big on that. That's important.
I spent 20 years in hospitality, high-end hotels. I used to be a chef, all that stuff. And I tell everybody, I said, do you know how hard it is to sell food that sucks? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so like the whole thing is like it's a whole thing. And like, think about it this way, to go on another level. Most of the time, and I pardon me if I'm just throwing people in a bucket, but there's a lot of times where one spouse is home and one isn't. So you're inviting some random company into your home.
Into your
right.
That's the most important
into your home.
In your home.
And so I get them to focus on that. We're gonna have the best product. We're gonna have the best, service. But it's all those other things that you need to hit, and it's the things that what I tell everybody is let's scale the unscalable.
I love that.
And so
that's all.
And like I ask myself super questions. I ask myself, let's scale the unscalable, and then I ask myself a simple question: what will my competitors do that I will do? And then I just do that. And so, I think that the more and more things become quicker, the more and more technology advances, the people that give great customer service, that trust factor, you make them feel good, all those things. I think those are just going to continue to shine. So if people want to find the book, they want to track y'all down, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I didn't mention the book. So I've got a copy of the book, Winning Begins at Home, we wrote. And let me just give a little story on that. Basically, working with all these executives, all these companies, all these teams, and I kept hearing people say, hey, we're doing great at work, but things are not so great outside of work. And so I came up with this thought, basically, that I think it's really true. If you win at work and you lose at home, I think you still lose. I don't think the goal is to build a great company and to forfeit your family. I mean, it just we all know we've been in. If you're in a family, anybody's listening's in a family at some level. If your family's working right, it's kind of like leadership. It makes your life really good. And if your family's not right, we've all been there. It makes your life really hard. And so I just wanted to create some kind of tool. We're always talking about engagement and execution, leadership and culture, all that stuff in these companies. We thought, where's the content for leaders to help them grow a great family outside of work? And so wrote Winning Begins at Home there. And you can get that anywhere you get your books. You can go to leadeveryday.com. Lead Every Day is the name of our company. And all of our resources are there in our resource page. But yeah, we're trying to help, I guess I would say the whole person, kind of like you. We're trying to help people construct their life, not just their leadership. I think their leadership matters. What happens we'll use the old 9 to 5. I'm not sure that's, relevant anymore. Everybody's just kind of working whenever they're working. But if you get it all right from 9 to 5, but everything from 5 to 9 is not like it needs to be, that's not what we want. So we wanted to try to help people think about not just their family, but how do you take care of yourself? Like we were talking earlier, how do you take care of your finances, all that stuff. I really want to see people win at work, but I want to see them win beyond work as well. And so that's where the book came from. If that would serve people, they can go get that there. They can get it also at Barnes & Noble or Amazon, wherever they get their books. I'll mention this. The book is a leadership parable. It's about 120 pages in the front. Is a story about a business guy that I think people will really relate to these characters. And then the last 75 pages is a blueprint, basically, that they can work through to help them build, the family that they want, a family that they'll be proud of. And so I think that book will serve lots of people. It's available there. If you've got a company, I encourage you to give it to all your all your employees. I think if you help your employees win outside of work, they're actually better when they get to work. So all that stuff is a part of this conversation as well. We didn't really talk about a lot of that, but yeah, we're passionate about that as well. So leadeveryday.com. If we can help you, love for anybody to reach out. And again, just love what you're doing. Appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you for a few minutes here.
Wonderful. Guys, go grab that book, share it around with some friends, rate us and review us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.